they've seen for themselves and their children have experienced, and so therefore they have experienced the way in which this lack of adequately funding education has affected them every day. So they see their class sizes, they see the fact that there are fewer adults in the building, they see that that we've lost our library clerks and that some of our schools lost a security officer, or they've lost teachers. We had Principal Schmidt on one of our videos from this week talking about, I think, about 10 teachers that they've lost just in recent years from one high school because of the cuts that have happened and the increase in class sizes that have happened. So when you have teachers who have loads of 150, 160, 180 students in a high school English class, schedule, and then you're trying to assign papers and then read them, and you're reading almost 200 papers, that's the load that is on our teachers right now, and parents see that. So I think those who are closest to our schools right now, students, parents, teachers, principals, of course, volunteers, people who spend a lot of time in our schools, those are the folks who are most strongly advocating for additional investments because they've seen personally and experienced firsthand the damaging effects of these cuts.
We've been told that the teachers that there doesn't need to be 100% of teachers on strike in order to shut down the schools, that figure is roughly 30%. That if 30% of teachers say, no, we're not going to school today, that a school district, whatever the district that may be, will just be not enough manpower to operate. Is that a figure roughly with you, or?
I don't have a specific figure. I mean, we've certainly been able to use people from the district office to fill in classes before. So I don't have a specific number of what would require us to close or not require us to close.
Do you still plan to walk to the Capitol? I've heard that you were going to do that.
We have a group of teachers who were planning a march to Oklahoma City that was going to take a week, starting Wednesday and going through next weekend and into the early part of the following week. I don't know what will happen with that. I think that all of this depends on how this analysis of what actually was passed, how that goes, and then our teachers. Our teachers are going to work together with their teacher leadership, and they're going to have to determine what's next for them.
Your support right now, 100% behind the teachers?
Absolutely.
Will you yourself be walking on Monday?
Will I be in Oklahoma City on Monday? Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Do you have, if you could have one thing from the legislature right now, I know the OEA has their ask, but if you couldn't get everything, has TPS discussed something that they're willing to, I don't know, change at all, or has that not been discussed, or are you waiting to see what happens next? I know you said it's a minute-by-minute conversation.
Well, I think this is the first step in the right direction, and what we need is a continued recognition that this is not a problem that's solved, that this isn't over, that there's much more work that's going to happen to dig ourselves out of this hole that we've gotten ourselves into, and we are all responsible for that. All of us did this together because we elect folks, we put them in office, we hold them accountable, we do or don't advocate, and they do or don't respond. But all of us are responsible for this. There's no one person to blame. But I think that the message that I would want to send to our legislators right now is, first of all, I want them to know that there are people all across the state right now who recognize that they did something meaningful, that they did something important, and that they did it in a bipartisan way, and that wasn't easy for them to get to that point. They did it because they heard loudly and clearly from parents and teachers that it needed to happen. So all of that worked exactly the way that it should have. Voices were raised, elected officials listened to their constituents, they worked collaboratively together, and they got something done. So all of that is great. I would also ask the public and our legislators to understand that the continued advocacy that's coming from our teachers right now, and the reason that we won't be in school on Monday, and of course we're going to figure out what's going to happen after that, but that's happening because of their love for their students. It's happening because they have for so many years taken the brunt of these cuts on their shoulders, and they've now seen loudly and clearly, they've experienced how that affects their students, and that's what they're advocating for. And so I think it's important for folks to empathize with that and to recognize that it's done in the truest of hearts, in the most generous of ways possible, that they are seeking a better school experience for their students.
And just to be clear, because this is a fluid situation right now, there is no particular date on when school will reopen.
Correct.
Why do you think this happened now? Why not 5 years ago? Why not 5 years from now? I mean, has that been discussed? Like, this momentum really built quickly. I mean, there was a lot of kind of grassroots groups on social media, and why now?
I think it happened now because, like I said, our teachers they're seeing the impact that it's having on children. So they have, if this was just about teacher salaries, and if they were just in it for what they were going to get out of it, or their ability to make ends meet and earn a professional salary, which are all things that so many of us have been advocating for years. If it were just about that, the overwhelming reaction would have happened sooner. I think that what I saw happen was that teachers really got to a point where they said, okay, I've taken this on my own shoulders, but I see now this unraveling of what's happening to public education, and that's not okay. And so they stood up, and Oklahoma Education Association and Tulsa Classroom Teachers Association stood up and said, change needs to happen. They got organized, and the result is something big, and we'll have, continue to work with them to understand, what they intend to do now, given what's been passed.
Doctor, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you wanted to add you wish we would have asked you about?
I don't think so. Oh, for families. Mm-hmm. Do y'all have that link and everything?